This is Wildcat Country.
It's an Arizona story. Tommy Lloyd and the Arizona Wildcats are headed to the Final Four.
The inside scoop on the Arizona Wildcats.
Inside the 10. Stooks may have it. Oh, my goodness.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to bear down.
Welcome to another edition of Wildcat Country presented by Harrah's Auction Casino. Eric Cohen and Shane Dale, we are this close to the college football season. In fact, we have live college football games in like 10 days. We're recording this on Wednesday night. Can you believe that? We are so close, Shane. But we'll get to this episode is going to be our Big 12 prediction show. We're going to lay out Big 12 from 16 to 1. Where does Arizona fall? You may like it, you may not like it with what we come up with, but we'll break down every team and probably get some hate in the comments, Shane.
I hope so.
From other schools.
If we don't get hate from other schools, we're not doing it right.
You know, we still have a guy in our YouTube comments who's a Hawaii guy who's still hating on us after getting his team got its ass whooped last year.
You know what?
Still hating on us.
That's commitment. That's commitment,
Right.
and it's a video view, and I appreciate that very much. As long as you're a subscriber, sir, I appreciate it.
I don't have anything wrong with Hawaii. Great. U of A kicked the
Team Dick Tomey. Yeah.
Right. I don't have any problem with it, but this guy is still a year later. You guys got smoked. Okay. Talking about getting smoked, Shane. I just want to touch on this before we get going here.
Yeah.
Arizona's playing this Lithuanian trip, and people are freaking out online that they lost the first game by 11. We don't know what's going to happen on Thursday and Saturday, but it's probably not going to be good. And let me just make the point. Anybody that's freaking out over a college basketball team in August against professionals is an idiot. You can be upset that Arizona's not shooting three-pointers well. They went 3 of 18, and one was the last play of the game by Addison Arnold. So basically 2 of 17. You can get upset about that. You can get upset that, okay, maybe Caleb Holt wasn't perfect. But these idiots, Shane, who were like, this team's over, NIT bound. Come on. That's even bad for this show.
Did anyone see, someone actually say NIT bound?
I saw somewhere that somebody had referenced, like, this looks like an NIT team.
Okay. You know what I thought of at the end of the game? And I'll admit, I was working. I caught some of it. I've seen the box score. I haven't seen all of it, okay? But you know what I thought of when I saw people complaining, or I just knew people were going to, because I did keep up with the game, is I remember a couple lifetimes ago, I worked at ABC 15 in the sports department, and I got to do a quick Q&A with Larry Fitzgerald with one of his charity events, and it was during the preseason. And I remember asking him, do we in the press make too big a deal out of the NFL preseason? And before I even got halfway through my question, he said yes, like multiple times. Yes, we make So, but it's like, we always tell ourselves, like with the NFL preseason, we're not going to make a big deal out of it, but then it's all we have to go on at that point. So we inevitably do. This guy looks great. This guy looks like trash. We're not going to make playoffs this year. And of course, the same thing happens with Arizona basketball. No, it doesn't matter. It's August. It is not going to be relevant to what happens in the regular season. And a couple of the guys who are probably going to be rotation guys, including RJ Godfrey, didn't play. The one takeaway that I had, and it is just one, and it is barely that, because if we're going to be fair about it, if we're not going to do takeaways with the bad, we can't do too many takeaways with the good. But Ivan Karchenkov certainly looked the part of a guy who's going to be a star on this team. I mean, again, does that his performance today? He had 26 points. Does that mean he's going to be a star? No. But I think that he's going to be right up there with Caleb Holt in terms of, like, they're going to be like 1 and 1A in terms of the most important guys on this team. So what we saw against this Lithuanian team maybe went some distance in proving that. Probably not. Again, it's exhibition. They're on the road. They're figuring stuff out. There's a lot of trial and error going on. So, no, don't worry about it. If you want to sweat it out, I ain't going to stop you, and I'm not going to be able to.
No, I am. I am going to stop you. Mo Krivas played 11 minutes. Now, obviously, he's probably got some kind of a foot issue or something like that. Yeah, he shouldn't play the rest of the trip. Godfrey didn't play. Mandaquit didn't play. You had, all these new guys were getting big minutes. You're not going to see that Tommy Lloyd's going to shorten that rotation. Yeah, the three-point shooting is a concern. Okay, maybe a little bit, and maybe that's something that they can work on. But it's
Yes.
freaking August, and
Yes.
they're playing against pros, and they're
Yes.
not even in their own country.
Yes.
So can we stop with this?
Yeah. It's not going to
I
stop.
mean,
No, the answer is no. It's not going to stop. But I made a mistake of getting into a little bit with someone on X again. And
oh God,
but it's just
what'd you get yourself into?
well, this guy's complaining about the rebounding. And it's like I know it's August, but the rebounding was yes, it's August. It's exhibition. Krivos didn't play much. Godfrey didn't play. And even if they did, who freaking cares? It's a great opportunity for them. It's a great bonding experience, a great chance to get some experience against some pros. And that's it. That's it.
100%. It's a great bonding experience and great learning experience. But I don't want anybody in the comments who tells me they're worried when Arizona gets blown out at least one of these next two games. You're playing
Yeah.
against national
It'll
teams.
happen
Like,
again. It'll happen again. People are going to
yeah.
freak out. Let them do what they want to do.
But the best comment that I saw would you rather have them go and play Trinidad and Tobago and win by 60? No, that doesn't really prove anything. You're playing against tougher teams. You're playing against real, men here, not boys.
Yeah.
I mean, this is what happens.
Right.
So be it. Okay. Let's get into our Big 12 predictions. We're gonna go 16. We're gonna start with 16 through 11. Then we're gonna go 10 through 5, and then 4 through 1. So we'll count them down. We have some graphics that we'll put on screen and show you. But Shane, your worst team in the Big 12 this year is.
Well, I'm going to start by saying, I learned with our weekly picks that we do, Eric, that the less that I think about it, the better I tend to do. So I did some research, but I didn't go too in depth. So I'm going to start with that. Number 16, I have last is UCF. And this came down to I had to pick someone last. Okay. UCF doesn't have an awful schedule. They may have improved at quarterback in the offseason. They did lose 4 out of 5 to end last year, with their only win coming barely over a really bad Oklahoma State team. And they're going to rely a lot on transfer portal additions. I don't think it's going to come together right away for Scott Frost. I had to pick someone last. I picked UCF.
I think this is easy, Shane. I have the last place team, not even a question. The Iowa State Cyclones were decimated.
Yeah.
I have them going 0-9 in Big 12 play and 2-10 overall. They're going to lose to Iowa in the non-conference, and they're going to lose out in the Big 12. Their schedule is very difficult. I just don't see it happening for them. I would be surprised. Honestly, I would be surprised if they were to do anything. If they got to 4 wins, that's an incredible coaching job. But they have at BYU, at Arizona, Kansas State is on there. They're not even, and they play Utah, who I think highly of. We'll talk about them later.
Yeah.
But I mean, the schedule isn't overly impossible. I just think this team is just a disaster, and the new coach coming in from Washington State is going to have a mess on his hands. So they're my worst team. My next worst team, and I mean, I think I'm an annual hater of this team, Shane. It's the Colorado Buffaloes. I also have them at 2-10. I have them at 1-8 in conference. I have them winning. I believe their last game of the season after a long losing streak. I have them beating UCF at home to get their one win, and I think this is it for Deion Sanders. There is no way, in my opinion, he'll be around for 2028.
We're not too far off on that, but
2027.
Yeah, I got you. We're not too far off, but I got Cincinnati at 15. Kind of like UCF, Cincinnati faded big time the second half of last season. I think it's going to continue into this year. They were last in the country in time of possession per game, lousy on third downs. They hid that for a while last year, but they weren't able to the rest of the year. And now they don't have Brendan Sorsby on top of that. I think they continue to regress, and they're going to finish toward the bottom of the conference.
So I think those two teams to me are by far the worst. Like I have Colorado and Iowa State as by far the worst. You obviously have a couple of different teams. My 14th team in the power rankings is the sorry, as I'm looking at Baylor Bears here. Have them at 4-8 and 2-7 in conference. They get DJ Lagway in from Florida to play quarterback.
Yep.
I think Dave Aranda is done. I mean, he will not make it past this year. He's a good coach. He peaked at Baylor already. He will be on the unemployment line and probably someone's defensive coordinator next year. But I do not think it's going to be a good year for the Baylor Bears.
Yeah, and again, I don't think you'll see we're not too far off on these, but we'll get there. Number 14, I do have Iowa State there, and this is me trying to be nice. It is a total rebuild, like you said, for Iowa State. I do think they'll have a chance. They'll have a chance, and they will get a feel good win or two maybe in there. Hopefully not against Arizona, but they do have a chance for a couple late in the year against the two teams that I have below them. So that's why I have Iowa State at number 14, which I admit is charitable.
Let's go down to number 13. I'm going to let you start. I talked about this team earlier, the Colorado Buffaloes.
Yeah, yes, I got Colorado at 13, and it's simple. I don't think Colorado improved in the offseason. And if anything, they have a tougher schedule this year. They were one of the worst offensive teams in FBS last year by a number of metrics. They were like sub 110. Now they have a new offensive coordinator who's had 10 different jobs in the last 12 years. I don't think the Buffs get much better if at all this year. I'm not as big a Dion hater as you are, but I don't think they're going to make a run for the Big 12 championship or anything close to it.
My team that I think is next on the number 13 power rankings are the Kansas Jayhawks. I'm just not big landslide Polls team. You know, lost Jalen Daniels to the NFL, had a nice debut. I think it was Tampa Bay last week. And I mean, they brought back their old offensive coordinator who was at Penn State last year, or who had gone to Penn State the other year. I'm just not big on Kansas. The schedule really isn't that favorable, but I mean they have to go to London to play ASU, which is weird. They have games
Yeah.
at Utah and at Kansas State back to back. Also, you know, to end the year at West Virginia, home BYU, at Oklahoma State. That is a losing proposition. So they are my number 13 team. My number 12 team is the team we talked about earlier in UCF. I have them losing, I believe, 7 games here. I think that they can pull off end of season, can rally here. They have home games against Baylor, Arizona State, and Iowa State, and I have them winning all three of those
Oh,
and
yeah.
kind of salvaging their season. So that's why I'll put them in the 12 hole. Who do you have at 12?
I got Baylor at 12. I just don't see why this team is going to be much different from years past. I think we more or less agree with that. You know, they'll put up points. They're also going to give a lot up, probably more than they score. DJ Lagway, like you said, was a great addition, but they had a very good quarterback last year as well. And I don't think they did enough on defense to boost their run D or come up with more takeaways. Their overall schedule isn't brutal, but they end the season at BYU and at home against Texas Tech. So if they don't have 6 wins at that point, they ain't getting to a bowl game. So I just expect another season of maybe 5 wins for them, maybe 3 wins in the conference.
As far as it goes for Cincinnati, I have them as my number 11 team. Probably am higher on them. Well, definitely higher on them than you are. I have them going 6-6 because I have them beating Kansas State earlier in the year at home. I have them opening up with wins over Boston College, Western Carolina, Miami of Ohio, and Kansas State. And their first loss at Arizona, which could be interesting uh, if they come into Casino del Sol Stadium undefeated. After bye week, it's at West Virginia, Texas Tech, Utah, at Houston. I think they can win at Iowa State and play Colorado, but then they close at BYU. I think they make a bowl game. So I think this conference goes 11 deep into the bowls, but I'm not much higher on Cincinnati than that. I do like Scott Satterfield as a coach, and I think he retains his job going into next year. You have Kansas at number 11.
Yeah, even without Jalen Daniels, Kansas looks pretty good at the skill positions, but their offensive line is a big question mark. They only averaged 1 takeaway per game last season, and he had 13 takeaways altogether. I don't think they did much to improve in that area. Again, it's so hard to tell in transfer portal era, but I just kind of I'll believe it when I see it. They do have a lot of winnable games on their calendar, so I think another bowl game is possible, just largely because of a friendlier schedule. But I think 6 wins, maybe 7 if everything goes right for Kansas is probably their ceiling.
All right, time to go into the top 10, and this screen is where you and I start to really disagree. I think we
Good.
had pretty much the same teams on that first screen.
Yeah.
This one is where things go awry, Shane. Why don't you start with number 10 in Oklahoma State for you?
Yeah, I got OK State number 10. I think they could certainly be higher. They were second in the Big 12 transfer portal rankings, according to a 24/7, right behind Texas Tech, which, considering how much money Tech has to throw at these top transfers, is really saying something. It was very impressive haul. They should be a lot better this year. Their schedule isn't terribly challenging. No BYU or Utah. Eric Morris was a great hire, in my opinion. They have a ton of offensive weapons. There's just a good chance not everything is going to come together right away. The defense is probably going to be a work in progress. So I think this could be a 6 or 7 win team. I just can't bring myself to rate them higher at this point, but it wouldn't shock me if they finish top half of the Big 12.
My number 10 team is Rich Rod's West Virginia team. I also have them at 6-6 and 4-5 in the conference. As far as their schedule goes, the swing game for them will be against Arizona on October 10th. If they
Yeah.
can win that game, which I do not have them winning, I have the Wildcats winning that game. If they can win that game, I think West Virginia will finish higher, which is where you have them. We'll talk about them later. My number 9 team is the Arizona State Sun Devils. I think they're probably a 7-5 team. I think this is a team, and I hate to say this, Shane, but I mean, we're being honest here as we're going down the rankings. I think ASU is going to be really good next year. Like 27, you're going to look at like top of the Big 12 quality from ASU. I just think this year they're just not ready. There's too many new pieces. It's kind of a rebuild a little bit. New quarterback. The running back went to Texas. They brought in a couple of receivers, including a highly touted guy. They got one from Washington, I believe the one from Colorado. So, I mean, there's some talent for ASU, but I think Arizona gets them in the Territorial Cup. So they are my number 9 team. Who you got ninth?
Yeah, we're not too far off on that one, but number 9 for me is TCU. I know I sound like a broken record, just from what I've seen talked about with previous teams on my list, but I don't think TCU's offense is a concern, even with their new offensive coordinator who came over from UConn. But I don't think TCU's done anything special on defense. It's kind of a Big 12 hallmark, I guess. But TCU was ninth in the conference in points allowed and yards allowed last year. I think that's probably about where they're going to end up this year. They do have to play all of BYU, Utah, and Texas Tech, although 2 of those games will be at home. But I'd be surprised, like with TCU, I'd be surprised if they finish in the bottom 4 or the top 4 of the conference, but not surprised if they finish anywhere else. So I think number 9 is a good place to have them.
I'm going to let you start with number 8 in ASU, and then I'll get to mine.
Yeah, so we don't disagree too much on ASU. I do think they're going to be a bit better than advertised this year. I think Kenny Dillingham, look, he's an outstanding coach, whether we like it or not here as Arizona fans. They did a good job, like you said, reloading at wide receiver. I think Cutter Boley will be good, if not great. He cuts down the turnovers for ASU. I think they should have a very good pass rush as well. I don't think this is a Big 12 contender, but they will be a bowl team at minimum. If everything goes right, maybe an 8 or 9 win team, but I can certainly see them going higher on this list. But that Europe game, that tends to be like whoever loses that game tends to have a bad year. I don't know if that's going to continue, but that's something ASU's got to watch out for.
So I have Arizona in the number 8 spot via some tiebreakers. I have the Wildcats going 8-4 and 5-4 in the Big 12. I have them losing to BYU on September 12th. I have them losing at Texas Tech on Halloween, and I have them losing back-to-back games in November to Utah at home and at Kansas State. I think they have kind of they have a really tough stretch starting on Halloween at Texas Tech, home TCU, then Utah at Kansas State and ASU. I mean, I just can't see 5-0 like we saw from Arizona last year. Down the stretch. I think the Texas Tech game, I would love to see Texas Tech implode. I don't think it's going to happen. I think they're still going to be really good. So I think that's a loss. I think TCU and late on a Friday night, Arizona will have the time advantage there, even on a short week, just because it's a 8:30 local kickoff, which I believe will be 9:30 or 10:30 TCU time, which is late. I think Utah, really, really good team and really like their schedule. I'll talk about them later. And Kansas State on the road in Manhattan in November is going to be really tough. So I think 8-4, that's fair. I mean, eighth, there's a bunch of teams I think are going to be right around there. So I don't think this is necessarily reflective of, I think Arizona's the worst, the eighth, I think they're right somewhere between 4 and 8 is where I would rank Arizona. So right now I'll put them kind of in that lower end of it. You have them at 7th though, Shane.
Yeah. And we're still not disagreeing that much. But look, I love who Arizona brings back, and that includes the coaching staff. But look, just big picture, Arizona's lot in life in the current college football climate is, you're going to get a recruiting class probably ranked 40th to 50th nationally. You're not going to get much top talent in the transfer portal, maybe some guys with experience and some upside like they've gotten in the past. You've got to rely on coaching to help maximize that kind of talent and squeeze out a winning season or better, which is what Arizona was able to do last year. But the question is history going to repeat itself this year? I really like this coaching staff. I like Noah Fifita, a great quarterback, even better human being. But when you consider the talent level on this team and you combine it with the schedule they're facing, like you talked about, I think this is a 6 or 7 win team, maybe 8, like you're predicting. I would say probably 7, even though I have them higher on this list. I didn't break down the conference records like you did, but again, this isn't me being cynical. This is me trying to be as realistic as possible. This
Yeah.
program just they don't have the resources needed in today's world to consistently compete at a top 10 or maybe even a top 25 level consistently. And until that changes or the college football rules change, I think that's just the way things are. So I have them number 7. Could they surprise again? Absolutely. They have a lot of the like a great outline of a good team. They got to fill. They have a lot of gaps to fill, and maybe they'll do that. But between those question marks and the schedule, I have them at number 7.
Danny Gonzalez, if you are listening, I apologize, number one. And number two, listen, if you go 8-4, you're going to have nothing but praise from Shane and me and a lot of the fan base. I mean, that would be a phenomenal year. Personally, I think Arizona is, as I said, between the fourth and the eighth best team in the conference. Just being realistic here, and I that's why my number 17, Kansas State, I also have it 8-4 in the conference and 5-4, or 8-4 overall and 5-4 in the conference. But the reason I have them ahead of Arizona is because they would beat them head to head, according to me, on November 21st. I like them hiring Colin Klein. I think he's, former quarterback, comes back to run the program. I love that aspect of it. Kansas State, can Avery Johnson be better? If Avery Johnson's better, this is a team that could compete like Arizona could compete at the top of the conference. But they have a tricky schedule. I have them losing at Cincinnati, as I mentioned earlier. After their bye week, they play Houston at home. That's another swing game. Also at ASU, that's going to be a tricky one. They have a schedule where if things go right, I could see them winning 10, 11 games if everything went right. I just don't know that they're going to be. I'm not sure I'm buying into the Avery Johnson hype as much, but still think 8 wins would be a heck of a year, and the other Wildcats would be pleased. My number 6 team, I'm buying into Oklahoma State. Eric Morris is a fantastic coach. I have them at 8-4 and 6-3 in the conference. They play Oregon in the non-conference, so we got to avoid that. But their schedule is really good. Outside of Oregon, outside of trips to at Houston, at Kansas State, and at ASU, I think they can upset Texas Tech on November 14th and therefore go to 8-4, and that's why I'm ranking them this high. You have in your number 6 spot, surprising to me, the West Virginia Mountaineers.
Yeah, I know I'm biased, but I do like Rich Rodriguez back at West Virginia, and I think they're going to take a big step forward this year. Our guy Pete Futak noted that Rich Rod won 3 games in his first season during his first stint at West Virginia, and then he won 9 games the next year. They have a ton of talent at running back. Their offensive line should be better. They picked up some strong pass rushers in the transfer portal as well. I think this is a 7 to 8 win team, and their game against Arizona and Morgantown should be one of the more interesting games of the Big 12 season, and could be the difference. Like if they are close in record, could be the difference between who finishes ahead of each other in the rankings. But I got West Virginia at number 6. I'm still a Rich Rod believer, and he knows how to win there.
My number 5 team, who you have a lot lower, is TCU. I think they're going to be a lot better than people think. They open in was it Dublin against UNC, which is a gift. But I have them going 9-3 and 6-3 in the conference. They, at Arizona could be a big game for them. If they can win that game, you're talking about a potential, in my opinion, Big 12 championship contender. The problem is their last game is at Texas Tech on Thanksgiving. And I think that's going to be a problem. But Jaden Craig, their quarterback who came in from Harvard, really talented player and has gotten rave reviews in fall camp. So that's someone to keep an eye on. Your number 5 team, Shane, is one that I'm a little bit higher on, and that is the Houston Cougars.
And Houston could absolutely be higher. I agree. I think Willie Furtz is an outstanding coach. He's turned around one program after another in his career. He's already begun to do that in Houston. They bring back Connor Wigman at quarterback, most of their starters on defense. I think 6 out of 11 starters from last year. The only concerns are the offensive line. It's a big one. And they do have to go to Texas Tech and Utah. If that Utah game were in Houston, I'd probably have the Cougs higher than I have Utah on this list. That's one of the reasons I have, or maybe even the main reason I have Houston at number 5.
All right, let's count them down from 16 to 5. I have Iowa State as the worst team. 15th is Colorado, 14th Baylor, 13th Kansas, 12th UCF, 11th Cincinnati, West Virginia at 10, ASU 9, Arizona at 8, Kansas State at 7, Oklahoma State at 6, and TCU at 5. You have UCF as the worst team in the conference. You have Cincinnati 15, Iowa State 14, Colorado 13, Baylor 12, Kansas 11, Oklahoma State 10, TCU 9, ASU 8, Arizona 7, West Virginia 6, and Houston 5. After the break, you'll hear our final four teams. Who is going to play in the Big 12 championship game? Shane and I will differ on this one. It'll be interesting. Get ready for some hate from the opposing fans, Shane. This will get fun here on Wildcat Country.
Discover more Play for All at Harrah's Auction Casino.
Hi, folks. Here are your drinks.
Where having fun means racking up reward credits with the Caesars Rewards loyalty program that can be redeemed for food, free play, hotel stays, and more. Not only here in the city of Maricopa, but also at more than 50 Caesars properties coast to coast. From Harrah's Las Vegas to Caesars Palace in Atlantic City. What are you waiting for? Play for All at Harrah's Auction Casino, the official sponsor of Play.
Hey Wildcat fans, it pays to play at your local home for Caesars Rewards, Harrah's Auction Casino. With the nation's largest and most rewarding loyalty card, your play can take you coast to coast. Bear down and join the new VP of Play to unlock access at more than 50 destinations nationwide, only with Caesars Rewards. And you'll only find Caesars Rewards at Harrah's Auction Casino. So what are you waiting for? Sign up today, stay, play, splash, and dine right here in the Valley and rack up rewards to use in Vegas, Lake Tahoe, New Orleans, and beyond. Play is so much more rewarding at Harrah's Auction Casino, the official sponsor of Play. And our buddy Mike Kintner, the general manager of Harrah's Auction Casino, will join us for the final segment on next week's show. We'll get his thoughts as to what he thinks about Arizona in 2026. Now, we've counted them down 16-5. It's time for our final four teams. Who are the best four teams in the Big 12? Well, we kind of have some differences. So we'll start with your number 4 team, Shane, the Utah Utes.
Yeah, despite the coaching change, there's a good deal of continuity for the Utes, including at quarterback. They look like they've improved in key positions on defense, and especially at linebacker and in the secondary as well. And they don't have a daunting schedule, and most of their toughest games, including the Houston game, are at home. I think there's a good chance the BYU-Utah game, and this is hardly a stretch, but I think there's a good chance that game at Rice-Eccles could be for a Big 12 championship game spot. I don't think Utah's going to miss a beat moving on from Kyle Whittingham. I just think there's at least a couple teams better in this conference.
I really like Utah. We'll talk about them. I'll talk about them here shortly. My number 4 team is the Houston Cougars. You talked about them a little bit earlier. Willie Fritz is a fantastic coach. They beat Arizona on a walk-off field goal at the end of last year, and I have them at 9-3 in conference. I really like their schedule here. They, open with Oregon State, which is a joke. They open with Southern. I think the at Texas Tech on a Friday in week 3 is tricky. But later in the season, at Utah, I mean, if they can win at West Virginia on November 21st, where I have them losing, their final 4 games are after a bye week, are home Cincinnati, at Colorado, at West Virginia, and home Baylor. If Houston can go 4-0 in those games, you can easily make a case that they can make the Big 12 championship game. My number 3 team, who you have a lot higher, is the BYU Cougars. I have them at 10-2. I have them and Utah tied. Utah's my number 2 team, and I'll talk about them in a second. I have BYU at 10-2, 8-1 in the conference. I think they lose to Notre Dame at home because Notre Dame is going to be a powerhouse. But then again, as we've learned, and as I told Phil Steele, you can't bet Notre Dame to win national titles. But I have them losing to Utah at home. I think that's going to be a really tricky game for them. The home team does very well there. That's November 7th. But outside of that, the schedule for BYU is really, really good. They avoid Texas Tech. So BYU has no excuses not to win 10 games this year if they can beat Arizona in week 2. Who's your number 3 team, Shane?
My other team that I have probably, like, along with West Virginia, that I have a lot higher than most people is K-State. Colin Klein's 36, and he's only the second. It's crazy. He's 36, but he's only the second youngest head coach of the Big 12. I really like the hire, the combination of the continuity, easy for me to say, they have at quarterback, as well as some of the talent that they brought in, especially on defense. I really like as well. Their pass rush has a chance to be one of the best in the conference. Most of all, their schedule is not intimidating at all. No Texas Tech, no BYU, no Utah. They get Houston at home. I think the stars align nicely for them. I think they'll fall just short of reaching the Big 12 championship game. I think that maybe Utah and even Houston are a little bit better, but because of the schedule, partly because of the schedule anyway, I have K-State at number three.
I have Utah at number two. I have them going 11-1 and 8-1 in conference, and this is probably too high, but their schedule, Shane, is an absolute joke. Listen to this schedule. Idaho at home, Arkansas at home, Utah State at home, at Iowa State. That should be an easy 4-0. And they get a bye week. Kansas at home, at Colorado. So, I mean, their first 6 games untested. Houston at home is going to be tricky. At Cincinnati, okay, maybe, but they should win that. BYU at home, at Arizona, where I have them winning. I have them undefeated and 10-0 before losing at TCU on November 21st, and then they beat West Virginia on Black Friday to go 11-1. I'm probably a little too high on this Utah team in that they're replacing a lot on both lines, plus they have a new coach. But that schedule is such a joke. So I have them getting the tiebreaker over BYU with a head-to-head, and that's why I have them in the Big 12 championship game against Texas Tech. Your number two team, I would assume, would be the Texas Tech Red Raiders.
I do have the Red Raiders at number two, and despite the Brendan Sorsby situation, Texas Tech still has those deep pockets, and they reloaded again for this year. I just don't know if Will Hammond is the guy to get them beyond where they were last year. They'll be very good again, especially on defense. I just think the combination of Hammond and then maybe some concerns in pass protection could keep Texas Tech from winning the conference again. So they could certainly do it, but I have them falling just short.
And your number one team, Shane, the one team you haven't mentioned, the BYU Cougars.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw this list of the most underrated teams going into each season since 2014, which is in terms of where they were ranked before the season versus where they ended each year since that time. There were 8 current Big 12 teams on that list in the top 20. BYU was number one overall. They're consistently underrated. That's something I kept in mind as I created these rankings. They weren't far off from being a CFP team last year. They bring back Bear Bachmeyer and LJ Martin from last year, who we saw in person in Tucson, along with 3 starters in the offensive line. I think they bulked up defensively. I don't know if this is a national championship contender, but with Texas Tech's quarterback question, I'd like them to be the best team in the conference this year and rep the Big 12 in the CFP. I have them beating Texas Tech in a Big 12 title game rematch.
You know, we have a great Texas Tech connection who comes on this show, Joe Lopez.
Yes.
He's a wonderful guy, and
Awesome
we've
guy.
enjoyed. And we'll probably have him on again right before Halloween, that matchup when Arizona goes to Lubbock. But in general, their fans this offseason have been beyond obnoxious on social media. And the whole Sorsby thing, like, guys, he bets a lot. You can't do that in college athletics. He shouldn't be allowed to play. It shouldn't be a political issue. It shouldn't be this is a common sense issue. And so I don't want to hear, I just don't understand what the Texas Tech fans were doing. With that said, I know they lost a lot, especially on defense, to the NFL draft. This is a really good team. They brought in a lot of transfers. Listen, they have a huge budget. You have to give their big donor, Cody Campbell, a lot of credit. He's spending a lot of money on this team, and they're really good. And I think Joey McGuire is a good coach. I have them at 11-1. I have their one loss being, as I mentioned, to at Oklahoma State on November 14th. Would not shock me at all if they went undefeated in the regular season, and I think they will beat Utah in the Big 12 championship game. So to round out our final 4, fourth I have Houston, third I have BYU, second I have Utah, and 1 I have Texas Tech. Shane has Utah as number 4, Kansas State as number 3, Texas Tech as 2, and the Big 12 champions in his mind are the BYU Cougars. So Shane, next week we'll kind of preview the whole college football landscape, make our national championship predictions and such. You'll give us your Arizona schedule. We'll kind of break it down, how many wins you think Arizona's going to have. But just initially, as I broke it down, 8-4 is where I have the Wildcats. If Arizona goes 8-4 this season and beats ASU in the 100th Territorial Cup game, you would have to consider that a very successful season for Brent Brennan and company, correct?
If that includes the win over ASU, yes, because that game is that important. Yes. Yeah, 8 wins, which would presumably be, 3-0 in non-conference. That game in Pullman, who knows? It's a game they should win, but you just never know. And then so 3-0 there, and then 5-4 in a very tough Big 12 schedule, including a home win over ASU. Which again, if you're the gambling type, stay away from that game. I think there are already odds on that game. Is it Arizona's like 4.5 point favorite or
Four and a
something
half
like
point
that?
favorites. Yep.
Which is
Yep.
crazy. There's
Yep.
even odds on it already. But again, I wouldn't even bet it before kickoff because you just never know. But yes, I would consider that a successful season. Would Noah Fifita consider it successful? Would Danny Gonzalez consider it successful? No, I don't think they would at all. They have bigger aspirations than that. But I think you and I are trying to be realistic about it. And if you follow up a 9-win season with an 8-win season, I mean, think about it this way: three 8+ win seasons in 4 years. For a few years ago, during during the pandemic, when this team was lost in the wilderness, we would have taken that in a heartbeat. So we'll see how it goes. I don't know if they're going to get there, and I do think ASU is. I think that the Territorial Cup game is going to be for a low to mid level bowl game. Both teams are probably going to have 6, maybe 7 wins going in.
Arizona today launched the Noah Fifita for Heisman campaign, what they had teased to us in when we saw them when we talked to them in March. Can't believe that was already almost 5 months ago when we had that film breakdown with Daggy and Danny. That was
Yeah.
wild. Nonetheless, they told us they were going to do a Noah Heisman campaign. You got to close out his senior season with a win over ASU. Otherwise, it's if you could go, I mean, if you go 7-5 with a loss to ASU, that is a disappointment. I think you have to win that game, regardless of anything else. You have to win the 100th Territorial Cup at home
Yeah.
on senior day.
Yeah, and the thing is, look, the way we for better or worse, the way we view this team now is going to be completely different versus the way we view them going into that game. There's
Yeah.
going to be a lot ups and downs, hopefully more ups and downs. There's going to be some injuries along the way. We could be at a point like where, say, they, lost a few games early due to injury, and then they're finishing the season strong, and we're feeling better about it, or it could be the other way around. We just don't know. But yeah, as far as the Noah for Heisman, I mean, I cringe when I see that stuff just because I know how humble and grounded he likes to be. And I feel like if I were in his shoes, like I could just imagine like him not wanting to look at that stuff. Like he knows there's business to be taken care of. He hasn't done a thing yet on the field in terms of games that count. None of his teammates have, and he knows that. I would stay away from all that stuff. It's great that they're doing that. They've got his back. I think he's been an outstanding quarterback and just a human being at Arizona. But I just want to stay away from the Heisman stuff. I just stay away.
One more thing I want to talk about. The Athletic did a college football coaching tier chart, tier one through tier eight. Now, tier one, there were only two coaches, Kirby Smart and Kurt Cignetti. Can't really argue with that. There are 10 teams in tier two, most of the Blue Bloods, Notre Dame, Miami, even though I wouldn't put Mario Cristobal that high, Ohio State, Texas, etc. Down in tier four, so we're talking about like in the mid 30s to like right around 40 is where Brent Brennan ranks. Do you think that is a fair ranking for Brent Brennan overall?
And just so, if you're wondering, I think Kenny Dillingham was in the third tier, and Jed Fisher's actually in the fourth tier with Brent Brennan. I think it's fair enough based on just 2 years of work. I also just look at it as, where would Arizona be just in terms of like coaching desirability tier? And it probably would be in that fourth tier as well. So I think it's fair. He can certainly move up that ladder. But again, it's going to be difficult with the resources or lack thereof. Desiree Reed-Francois has done a fantastic job at raising revenue, but I mean, Arizona football is, its lot in life is what it is. And I think if we're, to have a coach in that fourth tier, maybe that third tier, year in, year out is probably a good place to be. And I think it's a fair ranking.
I think it's probably higher than I would have expected, honestly. I just don't think the perception of Brent Brennan nationally, like people didn't follow San Jose State. He did a fine job there.
Yeah.
And I just don't think people really pay much attention to Arizona. So it's nice to see him get probably more respect than I would have expected. I think the key for Brent Brennan, and we'll find out how good a coach Brent Brennan is next year. I think, and I've made this prediction before, and I'll make it probably dozens of times throughout the season, that I believe he'll be looking for a new offensive coordinator, and he obviously has to replace Noah Fifita. And so you're going to have a new quarterback and a new offensive coordinator. If Arizona goes 6-6 next year, not even knowing what their schedule looks like, and can get to a bowl game, I'm sold. But I think this is the year we need, we've been kind of waiting for this Arizona season. Next year, I think it's going to be tough. I would not be surprised if Arizona bottomed out, next year as they have to rebuild a lot. When you have, as you said it, Shane, the Wildcats are one of 12 teams nationally to return their head coach, 2 coordinators, and starting quarterback.
Yep.
That is an incredible advantage.
Yep.
And that's why an 8 or even better win season is expected by a lot of people. We'll see Brent Brennan's true mettle next year when he has to rebuild.
That's fair. That's fair. I mean, he did. He and his staff have brought in a lot of talented guys, but they did inherit Noah Fifita. That is a fair point.
Mm-hmm.
Although, Seth Diggy did a great job turning things around with him. But yeah, once he departs, then I mean, look, they can recruit a quarterback, but then Seth Diggy brought in say Oscar Rios, who was a 4-star guy. When Seth leaves, what's going to happen there? Those are the questions we'll have to answer. I think that's a fair assessment.
I believe that Arizona will go the Jaden Delora route and find a transfer quarterback to start, like a senior transfer, and let, Rios or whomever, grow behind him. That would be my guess for next year. But we'll worry about next year. For now, that's where we have our Big 12 standings or Big 12 power rankings in 2026. So thank you for listening. It's always an exercise, generally when Shane and I have done this, in futility, but hopefully I'm wrong. I think hopefully you're wrong and Arizona's in the top 4 and we could say, whoops, so be it. Who knows, Shane? That's what makes it fun. So for Shane Dale, I'm Eric Cohen. Thanks for listening. And as always, bear down.